Okay. Okay, so these are the contents that you're supposed to see during your second unit. So hope you all have now having the basics related with this C++ and C programming. So before starting with this content, I need to get that you're familiar with the basics and also for the C++ programming. So how we can understood this, or how we can analyze at our end that how we are, or whether we are knowing the basics of this or not. So best way is that what I can suggest, you can start first uh, directly have the hands-on with the programming. Start take any of the problem statement, start putting the things, and you will absolutely get the things when you are going to do with the practically things, errors that you are able to get. If you are able to read these errors, and if you are able to resolve these errors after reading these content, you'll get some confident about this, because anyhow for any language. Okay, so first and most important part that you need to first start hands-on with these things, because syntax and these all part that you will be familiar with this as and when we will be practicing. So it is not the thing that you are doing it and after a few days you will be perfect enough in that. So you need to practice for this, and mostly it is expected that you need to get hands-on for this, start doing with actual programming. Or else if you are not having now uh, the situation as we are having, if you are not having the system with you, machines with you, so start writing with the programs. Okay, at least get with the logic that you are going to apply for it, for the programs. Okay, so start writing with that simple programs. You can initially you can start with it, and have putting these things. You are having now some online tools also, or you are having desktop tools. With that you can directly put the things, and so what I will suggest that try with the both the things. Go with the directly practically hands-on for the actual programs, and one more thing, you can start writing with the programs also, so that it will be better for you to have the habit of it, because as you are supposed to do this in the theory exam also. Okay, so in the theory exam, you're supposed to write with the small programs. You're supposed to write with the small codes. Okay, so it will be better for you if you'll be having habit of writing the things as a programming, and also if you're having a aspect of actually implementing. No doubt these are required. Okay, and for your batch, as you are knowing it, you'll be having a in-same pattern which will be implemented. So initially it was we are having the online exams. Now from here onwards, you'll be having with the 30 marks in-same and 70 marks final exam that you're supposed to give. So this it will be a pattern, or this generally what I prefer. So I have taught this subject for almost for 3 to 4 times, not for Pune University, but for Mumbai University for 2 times, and for Pune University 1 time I have taught for Electronics and Telecommunication Department. Okay, so related with the experience, so I'll be having a experience of this both the things. Okay, so ENTC department, so that's why I'm sharing these things with you, because it is not the thing that the programming that you are going to study, you are going to perform, it will be not only limited to you. Now it is open for all the branches, so mechanical, ENTC, civil. So they will be all good enough, and those who will take a interest in this, they can have a good work in it. So it is not the thing that you are belonging to a computer field, so you will be only getting a good exposure, or definitely you will be having opportunities. No, so other fields or others, your friends, those who are belonging from other departments, if they are also having their interest in this, they can perform well in it. Okay, so that's why just I want to share a few things with you. So, and then we'll start with the actual content of this unit. So you are going to study with this unit in the two section. So you can say that it will be having a first part as a inheritance and another is a pointers. So these both are I can say it as main building blocks of this C++ programming, object oriented programming. So already hope you are familiar with this object oriented features. Okay, you are familiar with this object oriented concepts. Okay. Inheritance that you are going to see with these concepts, as you can see it on the screen also, that is the classes. Then what do you mean by inheritance, derived class, what do you mean by constructor, destructor, different types of inheritance. Okay, abstract. Okay. So there will be a good things that you can have these kind of interaction generally when you are going to have with this, because old syllabus, if you are familiar with it or not, I don't know, but they are introduced with some more features for the object oriented programming in this revised syllabus. So it will be very uh, changed or advanced, we can say it as syllabus which has been designed for this object oriented subject. Next we are going to see with the pointers. So there you are supposed to have with the interaction with the pointer, what they mean by pointer. Okay. Then how it can be implemented with the, so already I think pointers, these concepts are familiar with you as a part of your previous subjects, but now how these pointers it will be used as a part of object oriented feature, that we are going to see it in this unit. So mostly pointers are having a weightage, or if you have heard it from, or if you are having any your friends or seniors, those who are working in the industry. So those who are working are working mainly on the core language C, C++. From that you can get the information that it will be having a more usage of these things, object-oriented features, in, right now with the actual implementation of the software or software development. It will be done with the help of this C, C++ programming. So with that approach also you need to have the things that it is not the thing that it is for your syllabus, so that you're supposed to uh, study with this language. Don't have that kind of approach, because ultimately you're supposed to get something out of it and you need to use it for your part of, as part of your job. So have with that approach, so that you'll be having a first and most important part related with any language. What I can suggest, that you need to start taking the interest in it. Okay, start having the search about it, have with some as like we can say it as history about it, have with some new things which are recent things which are um, we can say it as like a modifications which are done in this language. So if you'll get with these kind of information, it will be creates an interest for you to get involved in this. No doubt in the syllabus you'll be having this language, you are going to study for it, you get the marks, you will pass, and you will be continued for further your standards, third year, final year. But what is the important part, that if you will be involved in it, then definitely it will be creates interest, and it will be not feeling you as kind of burden of something, so that you need to study with this. Because if you will be more familiar with this, then it will be easy for you to go with the Java. Okay, so that's why I'm saying this object oriented features. It is not only the case that you are going to study in the second year, but you will be using these features for as like a your new language Java. You are having Python already, you are familiar with it, and few more languages also. They are having a base which is related with this, so that with that approach means what, if you are not feeling that, okay, I'm not going to work on C, C++, then why I'm going to take the interest in it. Okay, so it is not like that. If you need to study for further languages which will be used for different kind of programmings with the GUI approach. So for that also, this you will be having as like a base. So have with that approach. We'll start with the first point, inheritance. We'll get with the basics related with this in this today's session, and we'll get with the some types that we'll discuss today. Okay. Now, first and most important, I think this part you already done, but still I want to revise it. Okay. So reusability is an important feature of object-oriented programming. So what to reuse or why required uh, uh, reusability. So most of the things which are observed, or you might be also seeing it in your general applications that you are using or softwares that you are using. Okay, take an example as like your operating system. So for the operating system, you are having with the different versions, right? So new versions which are coming. So but they are having their own or whatever the basic structure, it will be fixed. That means what you will be having a my computer, you will be having a few applications which will be need as like a drivers. We need to have with some system settings, so that will not be changed. So just we are going to have with the change in the few things which will be required, or which we can say it as, which will be as we can say it as, which will be as like a GUI form, or which will be in some new tools if you need to have. Okay, but whatever the things which you are going to have it as a base, so that will be fixed. There will not be any change in it. So reusability, it will be like that. When you are going to have with the new things, it is not expected that you need to start from the scratch. You need to go for the new things from the existing one. So that it will be a most advantageous feature for the object oriented programming, that you are having a provision for reusing. Because it is not expected when you are designing any or developing any software. You need to start from the scratch, you need to start programming hash include from it. It is not expected. You need to go from the existing code, and from that existing code you need to make a changes. Okay, and these changes will have a new scope for new things that you need to implement. So it will be having a that approach which will be maintained, or that source that it will be comes from this object oriented feature. Okay. So mechanism, it will be a definition that we can say it as, so mechanism of deriving the new class from an old one, it will be called as inheritance. That is means, so you need to have with the existing class, and from that existing class you need to derive some features in the new class. So now we will be having a question in your mind, that why then we are not using, let's say if I'm using some class, and if I make the copy paste of it, so why I cannot use that for other programs? So that can be, that will not be I can say it as, it will be feasible way. Because when you are making any copy paste, okay, simply if you have observed, you are done with few programming, that if two entities or two students that you are doing a program, one is doing with its own way, another is doing it with own way, and if you copy paste that program with your program, and if you start implementing or start executing that, definitely it will be having errors. Okay, means what, uh, if I'm doing the program with things which will be known to me, or which will be easy for me, I can go with that. Other way, I can directly go with some shortcuts in my logical programs or in my logic which I am doing. So it will be done with that. So directly I can go with that and I can perform it. But other thing is that some other, if he will be interested with some more logic which will be more secure, in that case we can say. So he might be using his own logic and he can interact with that, or he can get involved with that kind of approach in the programming. Okay, so that is the difference. So that's why we need to use the inheritance. Okay, why to use this, that we are going to have it. Okay, so here we'll be having the old class which will be referred as a base class, new class which will be derived from it, so it will be called as derived class. So example, that if you are having it as this as a picture, that it will be gives you a more relevance for it, so which will be having a new class which will be derived from it. Now these are the some need and conceptual things, so that we need to have, that reusability is the one feature, that is the important feature that for every software that we require. Then features as like we can say it as which will be introduced, which will be as in the form of data or functions. Okay, so generally we are inheriting something means what? We are getting something. Okay, so that is in the form of either variables or in the form of functions. So mechanism of deriving a new class, which will be as like from an old one, it will be called as derivation, or we can say it as simple example. In the mathematics we are having it, we are putting some problem statement, and from that you are deriving something, you are giving some information which will be useful to resolve this problem. Okay. Uh, so old class, sometimes these terms are referred as a superclass or subclass, is a base class and derived class. Okay. If we'll go mostly specifically, these terms are used in the Java also. So in the Java, you are having these object-oriented features. Okay, so you are going to see language called as Java, which will be having these object-oriented features. So there it will be referred these terms as a superclass and a subclass. Okay, so an example like this, so it will be having with inheritance. What it will be, it is a process by which one class acquire the property of object of another class. So what we can say from this, so object generally what it will be having, so object means what? It is the main key component through which we can interact with the class. So here, as you can see it in the diagram also, so there will be are going to maintain some hierarchies. So hierarchies, why it will be required? Because if I'm saying it as if I'm acquiring something, so that acquiring, it will be not done directly, either it might be through a direct parents or great grandparents. Okay, so generally I'll give you an example for this, that if generally we are having it as our grandparents and son, so it will be having it as a relation which will be coming through with some hierarchy, and through that we are able to get number of things. Okay, means what? If I'm having a son and daughter as a relation, and grandson and granddaughter, so it will be having a direct relation, or there it will be some indirect relation, like that in the bird. So example here you can observe that bird, it will be a parent, and for that we'll be having a bird with which type, then it will be flying bird or non-flying bird. We can categorize that. If it will be flying bird, then which, then non-flying, then which. So your leaf node of this hierarchy, it will gives me actual data that I'll be required. So starting from the class where I'm having with the bird class, subclasses as flying bird, non-flying bird. In that, again, I'm having with some more examples which will be relevant for it. Okay, so this traversal, or we can say it as, if you can observe that it will be having some arrows which will be traversing. So these, it will give you a data that we can get from it. So if I'm saying it as a bird, then what kind of information that I can get, from which I can categorize it to a flying bird and it will to a non-flying bird. So that interaction, or these we can say that information related to this, so that will decide me, or that will use me a property. So from that, now this property means what? Ultimately what, in the programming we can say that it will be a variables or a function. So from that information I can decide it will belongs to which class or which property it will take. Okay, so property generally it will be refers to as your objects and functions. In that form we are going to traverse through it. So this is a syntactical term that you need to follow when you are going to have the inheritance. So first you need to have the class, then derived class name, colon, visibility mode, and base class name. So if you can observe this diagram, so that it will be more clear. If I'm saying it, it will be a base class. So what it will be base class here, that is XYZ. And from that, I'm getting a arrow which will be coming to ABC. So ABC is one more class and XYZ is another class. So here we can say it as XYZ is my base class and ABC, it will be my derived class. Now there will be a different visibility mode through which we can interact with it. Okay, so in class also you might be familiar with this visibility mode, that is private, public, and protected. Now these, it will decide you that with how much we can say it as how we are interacting. Okay, so generally we can give it an example that suppose if I'm having XYZ as a faculty and ABC as a student, so how the student will interact with the faculty. So it will be having the some protocols which will be decided for it. Okay, I'm giving it an example. So with that approach, he will be interacting with it. Or faculty, if he is interacting with the student, how it will be interacting. Same if I'll do it with some more relevance, that if that faculty is a guardian faculty member, and with that same he is interacting with the student, so there it will be some different kind of interaction through which he can interact with that student. So role it will be same, that XYZ is a faculty, but he is a guardian faculty member, and student it will be also same, that he is interacting with. So that it will means what? Okay, depending on this visibility mode, how we are interacting with the student or how we are interacting with the class, that will changes, right? Getting it? So I'll try to elaborate the terms with some examples so that you can correlate this and you can remember. If you are having any issues or connectivity issues, voice or anything, you can just put that in the chat window, uh, so that it will be easy for you to get the things. Okay. Now, related with this access, or we can say it as visibility mode, with which we can get interaction with it. With the same example, if we'll try to get. So if I'll say that XYZ, it will be my base class, that property I want to acquire it to ABC. So if it will be acquired with the privately, so it will be derived with the private as a visibility mode for it, then it will be definitely now from the acquiring the property, it is not mandatory that every time we need to acquire all the properties. We need to have with some limitation. We can put some, we can say it as, uh, because object oriented programming, it will be having a more important feature as like a security. So with that approach, we are not going to hide all the things, or and we are not going to open for all the things. We are going to see the things what it will be role it is having, and depending on that we are going to interact. Okay. So for that, if it will be private members, we are going to see with that. If it will be public member, then definitely you'll get all access for this. So definitely that member functions and data member, if it will be publicly declared that you are going to interact, it will be accessible with all the data member and member functions. If it will be private, definitely at this point you can say it as we are not going to interact with it, because it will be made it as private. We are having one more feature for it, that is called as friend function, through which we can interact with this, or we can have the uh, other mechanisms. And if it will be a default, if it is not mentioned, then it will be a private. So if I'm going to have it another approach, that is protected mode, so there also we are going to have with the mechanism through which we can interact. Okay, so we are going to see this as and when we are going to move further. Okay, so but default, if I'm not having any access specifier or mode through which we are going to interact, visibility mode, it will be referred as by default private. Okay, so definitely it is not showing any error for this. If I'm not having any visibility mode, it will be considered default as a private visibility mode. So when you will be having with the in base class and derived class, if I'm going to talk with the private and public derivation. So if it will be a public members for the base class, okay, so these members, it can be accessed directly, but private members will be not inheritable or that will not be accessible. Okay, so we are going to see with the example public derivation or public, if I'm going to have public members. So then if it will be having with the members which will be privately inherited, then we are not going to make it to access for this. Now what is accessibility mode or why we are going to put these things? Generally, take an example that if I'm having with one software, let's say Windows, we are having as MS Office with the different versions. So let's say for the 2007 and 2010, if I'm going to have with the comparison. So what we need to have in the 2007, I'll be having some additional feature, and in 2010 also I'll be having some additional feature. Then why we are introducing it? So there we'll be having with some security approaches, we'll be having with some plugins which will be added for it, but basic structure with which we are getting in the 2010, it will be having all the properties which will be included under it. Also they are removed with some limitations, and with these limitations, removed limitations, we can have more interactive features which will be involved in the 2010. I'm just giving it an example. So what is expected when we are inheriting something or we are deriving a properties? It is not expected that we need to take all the properties. We need to hide few things, or we need to take the things which are required for me. Okay, you can say it in both the ways, because when you are going to have the uh, or when you are acquiring something, it is not mandatory that all the variable and functions which are required, uh, it will be taking part in the current program. Let's say if I'm having two different programs, and in these two programs I'll be required all the things from the previous one, then it is not a, what we can say it as, feasible way, or it is not a proper way for doing a program. If I have required the things, I can take only that part which I'll be using for this program. Okay, so that's why we are going to acquire the things which I required from existing one. Now for the inheritance, as we can say it as, we'll be having a types. Depending on these acquiring properties, we'll be having a types which will be involved. So first it will be a single inheritance, then multiple inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, multi-level, and hybrid inheritance. So in the exam point of view, you will be also having the question related to this. Explain with the different types of inheritance with suitable example, or you'll be given a few inheritance with the diagrammatic approach, and from that you need to give that, okay, which type of inheritance will be included under it. Or and if you'll observe it for the previous question papers also, you'll be having some scenario, you'll be given with the problem statement, and from this scenario you need to identify which type of inheritance will exist in it. Okay, so for that purpose we need to go for the one by one with its types. So first, that is, you will be having the single inheritance, then multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hierarchical inheritance, and hybrid inheritance. I'm going a little bit fast because this you are familiar with it, so that's why I'm expecting that you need to get these things properly. Okay. Now, if you go with the one by one, single inheritance, if I'll say it as, it will be having the example that we want to give. It is a parent and child. So if I need to have with the, or we can say it as an staff who will be dealing with the student. So he might be interacting with it. So which will be having a one base class and one derived class. Suppose if I'm interacting with one student, so in that case, that one entity A will be my base class, B will be my derived class. Okay. So if it will be having with the multiple inheritance, so more than one base class and one derived class. Example that we can give for it, that is a more than one faculties can interact with the one student for different subjects that they are going to deal with. Okay, or here if I'll give it as a proper example, that it will be a parent and child, you will be having a mother and father, that it will be a your child, that it will be having a direct relation with it. from both. Okay, so it will be having the interaction with both. It will be acquiring. Okay. Next, it will be having a multi-level inheritance. Multi-level inheritance, it will be having, from the name you can remember it as multi-level. It will be having a different levels through which it is interacting. Okay, so it will be having it will be my base class, which is deriving to B, and again B is deriving to C. Okay, so it will be a parent, child, and its child, that you can say it as grandparents, parent, and child. Okay, so it will be acquiring these properties from different levels. Okay, so from the name we need to remember what it will be acquiring. That is a multi-level. It will be having the different levels through which it is acquiring. So A is acquiring the properties which will be required for B, and again C is acquiring it from B. Okay. Then next it will be hierarchical inheritance. So hierarchical inheritance. So hierarchy generally you need to have it at family tree. We will be having a family tree which will be having with the more parents, which will be having with more child. So here we'll be having one part of it. So here we'll be having one base class and many derived classes. Okay. So one faculty member, he will be dealing with the number of students in the class. Okay. So here we'll be having with few issues for when you are going to get the access with the different visibility mode. Okay. So you might be having less than 1 minute which is left.